Welcome to the Balanced Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Matt Southam. Here, we delve into candid conversations with entrepreneurs, exploring both their business journey and their secrets to maintaining mental well-being. As we navigate the balance of ambition and inner peace, I hope you find insights, inspiration, and invaluable takeaways in every episode. Thank you for joining us. Oliver, welcome to the show today. Before we talk about property card and finance and maybe some of your hobbies, give me some context to you. What do I need to know about you and your life?
Matt, it's great to meet you, and it's great to be here. Well, what you need to know about my life is I'm a bit of a global citizen. I have multiple passports, and I travel and live in multiple places around the world. And one of my great fascinations is real estate. And it's enabled me to live a lifestyle of freedom that I talk a lot about with people who are close to me. And it's a message that I like to spread because freedom is something that most people like and want, and very few people have it. Most are bogged down by responsibilities and the weight of life's pressures, and don't really have the means to live a life of true freedom to do the things that they would like to do, which is like the psychological pyramid of needs. Very few people are able to go to the top part to do the creative stuff that they like to do and live the type of life they want to live. So it's a struggle for most people to move up the pyramid to get to, break out of survival mode into a lifestyle that they desire. And I found that real estate is the number one way to do this. And this is not a preference or an opinion, it's fact. 2/3 of global wealth is in real estate. And I found that through real estate, you can build a life of positive cash flow and financial freedom and so on. So to summarize, I'm a real estate investor and entrepreneur. And I used to be a derivatives trader for a bank, also where I traveled around and worked in multiple cities around the world. So these are two things that I really enjoy. I also really enjoy chess and poker. And I find a common thread through all of these things because there's a little bit of risk taking, there's a lot of statistics, and it's a game where if you run the numbers and the odds favorably over a long enough time frame, it compounds into a very powerful direction. And they have something underlying all of these games. Like the statistics behind these four things I mentioned are very similar. So I found a common thread in them. So I've been trading since I was very young, and it's one of my income streams is to trade the financial markets. And I found that those who are able to do it profitably, and it's very few. So the percentage of traders who are profitable long term is 2 or 3%, very small percentage. It's the same for profitable poker players, successful entrepreneurs, and even top chess players. The percentiles of where you get really good at these games is long-tailed, and it requires some of the same skills and discipline and mental capacity and so on. So these are the four things I really enjoy doing, and all of it brought me to my primary purpose, which is to change the real estate game through property card.
Yeah, so I guess, going back to some of the things you've done, there is some strategic risk, I suppose, might be a way to summarize it. And often entrepreneurs, we do need to take some risk, but it's about being calculated. And that's what you've discovered. Is that correct?
Correct. Risk is a big thing. It's very smartly brought up by you, which is the risk management side of all these things is what determines a lot of the success. It's not really the upside, more it's management of the downside. And specifically, in all the things I mentioned, in poker, it's a lot about losing as little as possible, capitalizing on other people's mistakes. It's making the fewest mistakes and blunders possible, which is the same for chess, same for business. If you make the fewest mistakes possible and you capitalize over and over and over again, long run, you end up winning. So it's, in a big part, it's a risk management game. Same with investment. It's a lot about protecting the downside. It's like Warren Buffett said, his number one rule is don't lose money. Rule number 2, don't forget rule number 1. So there's only one rule to this game, and it applies to all these activities we mentioned, which is to manage and protect the downside. And it's a lot harder to do it than to just talk about it. A lot of people know, but can't really do it. consistently long enough. That's why you see a lot of people in real estate and in trading and in poker, you see them bust out. They kind of lose their entire bankroll, or they'll go too big on one trade or too big on one investment, or they'll go all into one specific thing and they'll bust out of the game, and you don't see them in that game much longer. So very few people will consistently stay and grow profitably, continuously over decades in one specific game. So like you said, a lot of it is risk management, and that took a long while for me to realize and to learn and understand, and it's a game you just keep getting better at.
Yeah. So when did you first get into property? When did you first realize that real estate was, a way to give you that freedom that I'm guessing you've always desired, because most people desire that freedom?
That's what I've found, is that if there's one core underlying value and belief that everyone wants, whether it's conscious or it's unconscious still, they want to be more free. So more money, more time, more flexibility. Everyone wants more of these things. And freedom is the word that's underneath all of this. And we're all trying to get more freedom, and we go about it in different ways. But one thing that's undeniable is that all the wealth of the world is in real estate. 60-70% of global wealth is in real estate. When I started making money in trading, the first thing I bought was a property. And that's because where else would you put money if you want to stash it away that's in a place that's safe, but you also want it to grow, you want to be able to rent it out, make cash flow. It checks so many boxes. And that's why you see all of the money pile into that one sector. So no matter where you've made your money, it ends up in real estate. It funnels back into real estate, into the house that you live in, and so on. So 2/3 of global wealth is property. 1/3 of global wealth, cash flow, is property related, which means even the transfers on a monthly basis are rent and bills and mortgages and utilities and so on. So if you're a student of the money game and you have an interest in making money and wealth and growing, your finances, you cannot but look towards real estate and get better at it, because one way or another, you're going to end up dabbling in the real estate side. So by zooming out and looking, when I was very young, I zoomed out and looked at where's all the money in the world. I want to go and get really good at that game. And, there's nowhere else to look but the real estate game. So I bought my first property, went on to buy another one, and then I opened a real estate fund. So I was managing a property fund of many units. So I got deeper and deeper into the game. And that's where I realized that if I were to distill all of this into one feature, it would be tracking your property net worth and cash flow. So if I could take one free feature and give it to everyone, it would be to start tracking this number. And that's what Property Card is. It does a lot of things in one app, but primarily it's a property net worth tracker, so that everyone can start looking at that number. Even if you're a tenant who doesn't own a house yet, you have a current cash flow per year or per month, which is negative. And most people don't know what that number is. It's not just the rent number. You have to add up the bills, which are changing each month. You might split it with someone else. You might, buy one house and then rent the other. Everyone's on the ladder, whether they realize it or not. Some are just much worse than others. If you're a tenant, you're on the ladder, but you're not playing the game very well because your cash flow is minus and your net worth is zero. So everyone's on the property ladder in the world. It's one thing that unites all of us. We all have a place to live, and we're all on the property ladder. But this tool is to help you start moving up the ladder by firstly being aware of where you sit and what your numbers are.
Yeah, that's a really key point, actually, because I think a lot of us don't maybe understand, our budgets, what we're spending money on. And that's a really interesting concept, that we're all on the property ladder, yet obviously some people are in the negative, some in the positive, depending on if you're owning or renting and so on. But the first step is to actually understand your figures so that you can then actually work out what your next step is.
I find that when someone, like what you just said, I find that when someone realizes they're actually on the ladder already, and their score is 0 for net worth and minus 22,000 per year for rent, for cash flow, it's the huge wake-up call. Like many things in life, half the job is awareness of where you actually are, what game you're actually playing, and it changes everything. So just to be aware that you're already in the property game, but you're playing it horribly. Instead of renting $20,000 a year, you could be making $20,000. So that $20,000 could be a down payment for the house, which you own, and then rent it out, and someone else will pay off your mortgage, and so on. You start moving in the positive cash flow direction. And this is something that should be taught to people much earlier. You should know this from a very young age. Time and compounding is one of the greatest factors that's on your side. So the earlier you start, the more it can run, which is why, when back to the Warren Buffett example, and I allude to him a lot because the most successful investor of our time and the most long-term thinking, who started stock trading at age of 11, his only regret in life is not starting earlier. So if I were to give one gift to the world, it would be to make you aware that you're already on the ladder. Start rising it as soon as possible. And here's the tool to do that. So if you tell a kid at 15, 16 years old, their first rental, you're already on the ladder, and your figures are as follows. Their whole life, they're going to be thinking about, okay, I need to take that minus and reduce the minus till it gets to zero. Then increase it a little bit into the positive and start tracking it for the rest of my life. Just that provides a straight line benchmark financially for someone to move forward correctly through life, not in debt, but in a positive cash flow direction. Most people are in debt. So I found that if I were to take all this and distill it into something very easy and simple, and just as a concept, it would be a property net worth tracker with so much else you can do and manage in there to grow your portfolio. But it starts off with track your numbers first and start rising up the ladder, because property ownership is a beautiful way towards financial freedom. So there's a beautiful end goal that all of us should be part of.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I've got a lot to talk about in there, and I do want to get on to property card. But obviously, the first point is I don't feel, certainly in the UK, our education system is set up to teach people about some of these important things. And the ones we often hear about is, we don't get taught about tax, but actually even the finance of property and compound interest, unless you start to study economics, it's not really taught. And actually, that means that people are going in, like you say, without the knowledge, and that they're going in blind, and that's probably why there is such an issue. But I guess the other part to that, as you know, talk to me about education. Do you think people should be educated much earlier on?
Matt, you're asking a very smart and perfect question. You took this conversation in a direction that is very smart, because governments don't want people to know this. So it's not that, it took me a long time to realize, why isn't this taught? And it's a very good question. But they do not want people to know this, because if everyone had freedom, there would be no employees. There would be no government employees. There would be no people in the positions that they need to be. There would be too many people angling for power and rising up, and at the top of the food chain, it's thinner and thinner. There's fewer people up there. So if you were to go and spread the true knowledge to everyone, what happens to those at the top? There would be revolutions. There would be less people who give a shit. They would do what they want. You would have a lot more, it would be a lot more difficult to control the population and to keep them in their place. So most education in the world today is absolute bullshit. Most of it. And it's very few people will realize this even in a lifetime, because there's so much information bombarded at you every day, and a little bit in school, a little bit in your environment, and just to decipher all of this into what's, the right things to do and the way the world really works is a few core concepts. But I think this is a starting point, just to make, my children, if I were to make them aware of one concept like this, that they can go straight line through life, would change their lives. If you start off at 10 years old and you have an obsessive desire to compound cash flow positively for life, you'll never be in debt. You'll never be beholden to most people. You'll live a life of more freedom and more empowerment, and you'd have a lot more of the things that you want just with this core concept. So a lot of what's happening in the world today is meant at distracting the population, keeping them kind of enslaved and in their minds. And there's so much garbage out there, from porn to drugs. There's so much out there that's not meant to empower you. It's meant to enslave and weaken you. So the game out there today is a distraction, disempowerment game. But it's cloaked under, we're trying to do the best for you and all that. So there's a lot to uncover and decipher, but I think that my contribution to all of this is a simple one in the realm of real estate. And I think that it's something that very, very simple that could be distilled and given to someone at any age. I mean, my cousin, I'll give you an example. My cousins are 17, 18 years old. All we talk about now is financial freedom and wealth and real estate. They're about to buy their first property at 18. How many people do that? They're going around in the summers and they're scraping together between three brothers. They scrape together $3,000 each. So they got $9,000, are figuring out how to get a 5% down payment on a little property for 60, 70K. Whatever it is, just to get on the ladder and flip from minus to plus. But you're doing that at 18 years old. Where's he going to be at 48?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is getting on the earlier you can, the better. And also because generally the price of property is continually rising. I know we have ups and downs, but generally every 10 years, if you look back, the price of property has increased, and that's because it's become more valuable. So the earlier you get on, the better.
100% what you're saying.
Yeah.
A lot of the beautiful things in life are very easy to understand. You just have to do it and get started. And this is one of those things that it's like a hidden gem that, you know, most people, if you ask them right now, do you own property? And they say no. And you say to them, why not? Whatever. They'll say, how am I going to buy property? Where am I going to get $500,000 from? And they don't think it's possible. They think it's such a crazy concept to buy real estate. I have to be a millionaire or a loaded whatever to get real estate. But you can buy a very small unit. You can split it with multiple people. You can find the down payment on a 5-10% and then do it as a rental instead of a home. You can scrape $10,000 together somehow and work very hard for that first piece. But then you're on the ladder and then the second one. So there's ways to do it very, very simply. But there's a lot of misconceptions around this specifically. Most people don't think, they think it's crazy to be buying real estate. And after you discuss these things with them, a few months later, once it's settled in their mind correctly, suddenly they want to buy 10 units. In their mind, I want to build a portfolio. You know, they don't want to go small. Let's go all in. So a lot of it's just, they don't even know.
No. I mean, do you think there's part of that we maybe think too big? So people thinking about buying their first property, their first idea is, I want a 4-bed house, lovely garden, nice area, but not realizing that actually if you don't have the funds to do that the stepping stone is by going small and buying something run down, buying something cheap, flipping it. But just getting on the ladder is more important than just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting until you might be able to buy this ideal property.
You ask amazing questions, Matt.
Cheers, man.
That's completely true, because the average rental for the seasoned landlords makes $200 a month. So those who are seasoned with their portfolios and they have 10, 20, 30 units, they're not going after the mansions and so on. They're going after little units that provide cash flow. And those are very small units. So I think the average is around $200 in cash flow a month. So you're buying an asset that'll make you $2,000 a year. And probably that $2,000, you know, either it's on a mortgage, so even most of that you don't get, or it's full cash, then you get part of it, you get all of it. But we're talking very small, it's a stream of income, but it's something. So you go from a month goes by and I didn't make any money, or I lost money, all the endeavors I did in life, to suddenly every month I have plus 200. Your balance sheet suddenly has, every month, $200 comes in. What it's going to do to you is the month after, how do I make it 300, 400? You start thinking towards, I have to increase cash flow. But most people don't even know what that is. They don't have any money coming towards them. Incoming cash flow is foreign to most people. And you don't need to start with something huge like you said. The initial stream is usually $100 plus. So it's very small. It doesn't change your life in any way. But it's getting started, like you said, and you grow from there.
Yeah. Do you think, you know, worldwide, we are going to hit a point when actually population and available property are not going to coincide? Is there enough property for everyone to be able to do this, do you think?
You're talking because the population keeps growing?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, what
you could argue there's a so you know, with everything that happened with COVID and all that stuff, so we don't know what's going to happen population-wise, but there's still a lot of barren land. How much of Earth is still empty? And you can build upwards. Look at Dubai. You have one tower with 1,000 units in it.
Yeah.
You know, I was living in Dubai and I was doing the property funds in Dubai, and we were looking to buy like blocks or floors or things that we didn't even need to go so far to look for them. We just need to find a good building or and the supply is just, it's like a commodity. So many of the same unit. So there's even a lot of these like 15-minute cities and things that are starting to happen. So a lot of the property is starting to go upwards. So it's actually infinite. If you take the sky and you go upwards, it's actually infinite what you could do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a concept I'd never considered, but it is. You just keep going up. And actually, you don't need any more land, because I guess that's partly been the argument that we can't make more land, but actually, you don't need to if you can go up.
Yeah.
So talk me through Property Card, because actually you've managed to generate some quite huge investment into this business. So talk me through that journey.
We've put about $1.5 million. I did almost half of that. The rest was done through angels and some friends of mine, like the chairman of Virgin Group and some of the Virgin management team and a few other very savvy investors. And we started this as a side project to take on the property sector because it's the largest and it hasn't been disrupted. I mean, one thing in business that I find hard to conceive is that real estate, biggest sector in the world, we should have the biggest company in the world as a real estate company. Yet, if you look up the top 100 companies by size, there's not a single real estate company. So all of the world's money is in real estate, but top 100 companies, not one. We're talking 0% of the top 100 companies are in real estate. So there's things like that are just, boggles my mind. And I set out to build one of the biggest real estate companies. And I think that'll be done by doing a lot with a little. So a super app is what it's called. Property super app that does so much in one place, consolidated. So we're centralizing all the things you might need for real estate, which is documents, signatures, PDF creation, finances, portfolio, inventory, all these services and features in one clean app that does it all. It's called the Property Super App. And that's the vision for this business. It's taken a few years to build the core. Now that that's ready, we're rolling it out now. In the coming few years, we're going to be pushing this out aggressively.
So talk me through that then, because, where do you see this going? What's your big goal with this?
My big goal for this is to become the gold standard way to manage property and for people to track property wealth. So right now, if you look at the App Store and you look up property net worth, there's nothing. If you look up property documents and signatures and whatever, there's nothing. So there's a lot of features and services linked to real estate that don't exist today, let alone all in one app. So we're putting so many business verticals into one, and I see this becoming a household brand name and a tool that anyone who wants to go up the property ladder will be using, primarily to track the finances and do everything else as well. So we have a long journey, but the next 5 to 10 years is the marketing push. And next few years, we're targeting 1 million people to be using it. That's the first target.
Okay.
So that's the next chapter.
Yeah, I mean, this is an exciting time for you. You've obviously, gone through that journey of, you've discovered property, you've discovered making money from that, and then something was missing, and you've wanted to do something else. Is this what fires you up and gets you going each morning?
I would like to be able to manage growing property wealth on the go from anywhere. So I would like to have a lot of that freedom. So I don't want to do all that and be bogged down by admin, and it's hard to manage and so on. I would like both sides of, I would like to have the good minus the, without the admin piece,
Yep.
without having to work too hard to sustain it. So how to do both. And that's what would bring me freedom. So
you've sort of designed a product that you wanted, and now have realized that actually lots of people can use this. That be right?
I'm building this for myself. And I know that everyone will want it. As it grows and matures and does more and more, I know that people will want it too, because it's a journey that, like this conversation, when I open a conversation and have a few talking points about real estate, and I ask specific personalized questions about, do you own a house? How many? Do you rent? What's your cash flow? Give me the numbers. and I put you on the spot and try to get numbers out of you. And most people have no idea. And if they do, they have to go check Excel and napkin math and so on. So it's a very nice conversation starter, but everyone's in this game. So the conversation tends to go on for hours when I open a conversation like this. And I make it about their personalized, numbers, and I ask about them. And the conversation drags because everyone has an interest. Everyone's in the market looking for a dream home. They're thinking maybe I can get a second one. They kind of know that real estate's where the money's at. They know that one day in the future, if I had 3 or 4 units, I could retire much sooner. It's something that it lurks in your mind, and you know that there's a ticket to more freedom through this vehicle that you may or may not have expertise in. So it's a beautiful conversation that always expands into very nice topics of discussion. And I find that this is the business. I'm building the business to go with that this is the tool that you personally have to run things for yourselves that anyone can use. And a lot of products we find are very B2B focused. They're made for businesses. They're like web tools. They're complex and so on. So I've spent 5-6 years with a design team making sure that we do more with less every single week, in the sense that we have to do so much, but we have to strip it down as well. That's the difficulty. How do you add, and take pages off? It requires so much design and engineering expertise that you're adding 2 branches, deleting one, adding 2 branches, deleting one. So the end goal is you get a product that feels like an Apple product, where it looks like it doesn't do anything, but it does almost everything. So there's a lot of genius in that, and it's not easy to do. And no one's done that level of design mastery for real estate sector. So it needs the real estate expertise and the technology and design expertise coming together to harmonize a product that in your hand looks like it's so light and doesn't do much, but it's so clean and crisp, and I can build my real estate journey through this tool. And I want it to work bottom up so that a tenant in any country in the world can use it, not just a complex landlord in America. I'm thinking of a tenant in Ghana, a child in a third world country wanting to move up this journey as well, that this could be a tool to serve him also. Because these people are not catered for, and it's also much harder to build what I just mentioned than a just complex web tool for businesses. So that's the difficulty, and we've built it. We've built the core, and it's time to push it to market.
Brilliant. I'm loving your enthusiasm around this. And one word you've said quite a lot today is freedom. So what do you do with your freedom? Obviously, you're now investing in this business, but outside of that, what do you like to do? What do you do with your spare time and your free time and your freedom, as you say?
Another beautiful question, and one I think about a lot. And the reason I mention this word a lot, because it's a very core value. And it really is like a North Star that's driving this, that I want to be more free. If I could do more tomorrow than I did today, and it would take me 10 less minutes, I'll take it. Day after. So this is like a philosophy that is driving a lot of this. What do I do with my free time? Whatever I want is the answer. And being able to say that answer, most people can't say, because they're at a 9-to-5. They've got so many responsibilities. They don't even know what freedom is. They're too far away from even thinking about freedom. So, and I've seen this with the majority of people run to the end of their life, where the cycle of responsibilities, it weighs so hard, so far that you're under a pile of things that you can't get out of, and it's finished. You spend your life is no longer yours. You're no longer in command of your life, which is the case for many people. For me, it's again, whatever it is that I would like to do, but spend more time with those I care about. I love to travel. I love to do business on the go rather than in an office. And money is like a game that I enjoy playing and increasing cash flow. I will do a lot more of the things that freedom can get me in later years. So that chapter is reserved, but I love cars very much. So that'll be one thing. I train 2 hours a day, which is sacred time for me, boxing and training. And that's afforded by this poker. I do a lot of poker playing. So hours and hours of poker, which is a social game. I meet a lot of people that way. It's a money game, so there's cash always moving. I play cash games. So there's an underlying cash component to all of this, but in a social element. So even landlording and all the things I mentioned, it's cash plus people. And I love that game. So I love to play the money game around people and a social setting. So that means getting out of the office, out of the 9 to 5, and playing these different streams that I've discussed. So I can do a lot more of this through this game and through this tool. And again, freedom means something different to each person. So if you have more freedom, it will unlock more of the things you love. So that's the nice thing about it. It's not imposing. It's unlocking, empowering, opening up space for you to do. Like it's like a blank canvas. It allows you to do whatever you want, but most people don't have that as an option.
Yeah. I want to finish off today by asking you a question. And I'm slightly hesitant because I think it is going to go back to freedom. But what does success mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's more freedom.
Yeah.
Especially because it's a personal, because it has a personal meaning, I like it as well. It's not a definitive answer. Freedom means something else, just like success means something else, and to each person. So if it frees you up more, because even if you feel more creative and more happy, more liberated, this is freeing. All of this is freeing. So instead of being congested and repressed and tightened, and it's a freeing, opening kind of, this is what freedom is. And there's so many forms of freedom. But whatever it is that you do that brings you freedom, I mean, ask any athlete who's dedicated his life to one thing and is passionate about it. They found their freedom. They found their peace. Most people don't get to do that. So real estate, I found, is one way to allow everyone else who didn't find their master musician craft or athlete craft or whatever, another avenue to get back to freedom. You know, it's a very nice, works in the background kind of journey towards freedom. And you can start anywhere. You start with no home to owning a quarter of a home, to 1 home, to 2 homes, to 3. And as you go up that journey, it's like the dial of freedom is increasing. So I found it is the #1 tool for anyone to move up the freedom curve. So it's more like a freedom ladder even. It's not the property ladder. It's like a freedom ladder. The more of it you have, the more of it you get to do what you like. And it's one worth exploring and starting as early as possible. That's the message.
Oliver, your insights today have been absolutely fantastic. I've certainly learned a lot, and actually you've reframed my mind to think slightly differently about money and property. So I thank you for that, and I hope everyone listening has got something from it. I wish you all the best with Property Card. And like I say, it's been a fantastic conversation, so thank you for joining me.
Pleasure's all mine, Matt. Very nice to meet you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Balanced Ambition podcast. I genuinely hope the stories inspire you as much as they inspire me. If you found value in today's conversation, please share it with a friend. And remember, by subscribing, you won't miss an episode, and it would truly mean the world to me. Stay balanced, and I'll see you next time.